The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. This is Mark Roberts. I'm CEO of TechServe Alliance. Welcome to our the first of its kind virtual demo day on emerging talent acquisition technologies. Just so everyone knows that we are recording this presentation, and we'll talk a little bit about, there'll be an opportunity for questions. We'll talk about how you can pose those questions. Before I get started, before we start with the presentations and I turn it over to some other folks who will be joining us on this call, I just want to talk a little bit about the genesis of this. A couple of years ago, we started seeing the potential impact of talent acquisition technologies on the IT and engineering staffing and solutions space. We felt that many of these technologies certainly had the potential to be disruptive, both enabling firms in our industry to be more competitive, but also potentially being competitors themselves, looking to potentially gain market share. And so as the Industry Trade Association, we felt that it was part of our role to offer some thought leadership. That led to a discussion with our national board and the formation of a task force on emerging technologies in the human capital space. This virtual demo day, as we've called it, is really an outgrowth of all of that, and discussions with the chair of the task force, Gene Holtzman. Gene has really been one of the key thought leaders in terms of technology in our space. And he'll talk a little bit about an organization that he formed and ultimately attracted partners. But we're very excited to be hosting this. We see it is critical that as the Industry Trade Association that we provide you insight in terms of what's happening in terms of the technology space impacting our industry. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Gene, who will just talk a little bit about his thoughts on emerging technologies. Gene?
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. So I know we have close to 100 people online, and so my thought, again, people are really interested in this. So just a quick background. So, Mitchell Martin, we've been early adopters. We are about $180 million firm in New York City. Most of our clients are large financial firms who went many years ago to the MSP. We embraced the MSP. We embraced ATS systems, onboarding systems. And, a few years ago, we realized that our industry is going to be disrupted. It's going to happen to us. We always thought job boards were going to be the end of staffing, and it wasn't. But clearly, just like Uber and what's going on in the taxi industry and Airbnb, it's going to happen in staffing. And we thought we'd get out there and try to figure out what we should be doing. How do we become early adopters and maybe develop a competitive advantage? So we went out there and we looked at, and actually to our surprise, we found hundreds of companies that are doing things in the field called TAT, Talent Acquisition Technology. And it was overwhelming. Which of these products, you see some of them on the board, right now we're actually following over 500-600 of them. Which ones are going to be a help to us? Which ones are going to be around? So what I did, I was really confused, and I started an organization called Talent Tech Labs, which is an incubator, where we did it for a few reasons. One is for knowledge sharing, to share knowledge within the staffing industry. I think we need to all become more collaborative and help us as an industry to compete in the marketplace. The second reason, again, is to see what other companies, small companies, entrepreneurs are doing in a startup space. We invite them into our incubator. It's called Talent Tech Labs. You guys can look at it online. There's a lot of knowledge there. Again, there's a lot of knowledge sharing, as well as we're incubating companies, helping them develop, again, platforms and products in talent acquisition. I've been a proponent of this. Just recently, since people are really getting interested, we moved to Mark and his team and said we should do something. We now have a committee, and we have about 8 or 9 TechServe people on it. It's very exciting, and it was their idea to initiate this, to start educating people about what are some of the products. So today I'm going to introduce you to Brian Delladonna. He's the president of Talent Tech Labs, and he'll explain what we're going to do today. Thanks.
Thank you, Gene. So in those early days, it was overwhelming, and it continues to be, because the immersion of new technology is coming at a more rapid pace. And so initially, when Talent Tech Labs was formed, we tried to classify and characterize the space in a way that would help people better understand what the market is made up of and provide some decision support around what tools are available, and how they might be applicable to running your business better. And of course, these solutions apply to both staffing companies as well as the corporate side. And so today, there's about 280 companies that we track on this ecosystem. Behind that, there's probably another 12 or 1,300 that we look at every day. And so I think we're in a position to see almost everything that's moving and shaking in the space. And as a result, we sit on a lot of insights about what works with some of these tools, where they fit in, and how applicable they might be to making your business work more effectively. So Talent Tech Labs, and I'll just really be quick here, is an incubator, but so we really have two legs. We incubate companies, we bring them in, mentor, educate them, we test and validate their offerings, and we expose them to sources of funding. We try to help these companies establish a product market fit so that their solutions work in the real world. As a result of sitting on top of all this data, we're able to analyze and catalog it and actually present some research that we publish freely and that people come and ask us about. So these are the basic elements of Talent Tech Labs operations. As a result, we vet a lot of companies. And so that really gives us the insight into what might make sense to present to this audience. Jonathan Kestenbaum is the executive director of the lab and runs the day-to-day operation of this vetting process. And so Jonathan is going to take you quickly through that and then introduce a few companies that we think are doing really novel things in the space that are applicable to helping your businesses. Jonathan?
How are you guys? Thanks for having us today. So, as Brian said, we probably see about 30 companies a month. From the 30 companies, we demo every single technology, sometimes more than once. We shortlist those technologies down to about 3, depending on the month. Sometimes it's 2, that we feature in front of what we call an expert review committee. That expert review committee is made up of, at this point in time, members of our investors' companies. So you have heads of innovation, product guys, finance guys, heads of recruiting that sit through a demo and actually vote on what they think about the company, similar to what we're doing today. We then take that information and our board determines whether those companies are fit for our incubator. And if they're not, and if they are, we collect all that information into a database that we use to help us understand the space better and more importantly, to help us more effectively share research with the public. So today we're here, we're going to showcase 3 of the most interesting companies we've seen focused on staffing companies. We're going to start, I'll start by introducing what they do. Recruitix is a recruitment marketing company. So they combine, they basically take when you post a job ad out on job boards, they monitor the effectiveness of those job ads and your spend on those different job boards. Talennium is an analytics company which has a dashboard which connects to all the different point solutions that you use and displays relevant information to you, so you can see the effectiveness of your recruiters, et cetera, et cetera. Honeit is an interview management tool that focuses on recording and transcribing the phone interviews so that when a recruiter interviews a candidate, that information can be stored and searchable through your ATS. So we're really excited to share these companies with you guys and allow them to demo. We are going to start with Talennium first. Sorry, Recruitix first. Mark?
Yep. Hi, guys. Pleasure to be with you today. Thanks for the opportunity. Very exciting, the work that's being done in the space. And very excited to share with you guys a little bit about what Recruitix is doing. So, Recruitix, let me first introduce myself. I'm Mark Jensen, Director of Product here at Recruitix. I come from a diverse background. I got my start at UPS, the transportation company, although I was in the financial services arm, believe it or not. They have a financial services arm. I did not know this until I got the job there. And then I got my entrance into this space through Simply Hired. A friend of mine brought me over to Simply Hired, spent a few years there, heading up, by the time I left, their East Coast, their Eastern U.S. and Canada service business, servicing accounts. And then I came over to Recruitix most recently. I've been here for almost 2 years, and I'm delighted to share with you guys how we're changing the space. So here are some of our clients. Recruitix, we've been around since 2012, and as Jonathan mentioned, we're an analytics and optimization platform specifically for your online recruitment advertising efforts. We'll dive into that and exactly what that means in just a second here. So today we're optimizing and tracking jobs for our clients on just about 40 performance-based sources across the web. Many of them are the big names you guys know oh so well, and then some other smaller ones that you might not be as familiar with. And today, just to give you a sense of the scale of what we're doing here, so very big data, over 2.8 million jobs currently being optimized. And in the past 12 months, 809 million job views, 161 million applies. So a lot of activity going into our big data system to help us understand what's happening for our clients. All right, so I always like to zoom out and look at exactly where we fit, just to help everyone on the call. I know that there are some diverse backgrounds here and some diverse companies being presented today. So, Talent Tech Labs showed this a moment ago. This is a wonderful resource. If you haven't had an opportunity to see this or get your hands on it, head on over to talenttechlabs.com and pick up your copy of this wonderful resource. It's their talent acquisition technology ecosystem map. And I'm not being compensated for saying that, but by all means head over there and get a hold of that. So where's Recruitix? We're right here in this block. Let's blow that up. There we are. So Recruitix, we're in this job marketing and distribution bucket. We're actually specifically focused on that job marketing piece, less so on the distribution. We do some distribution, but it's primarily the job marketing piece that we're focused on. The distribution is really tangential. All right, so I'm going to go through a few slides that just talk about some of the pain points that we see in marketing jobs online, and then I will dive into the demo. All right, biggest problem? You're wasting money. Yes, if you're advertising online, you're wasting money. Here's where I would ask you to raise your hands if this was a live presentation. How many people are spending on online advertising on job boards or aggregators? And of course, some of you would raise your hands, and then I would go through the process of asking, well, how many are spending $5,000? How many are spending $10,000 per month? How many at $20,000? And get a lay of the land here. Regardless of how much you're spending, you're undoubtedly wasting money. How do I know that? Because we have that 809 million job views to prove it. This is what we see in our data. When you look at it, this is almost exactly what we see with every new client we bring on. 80% of the jobs that you're advertising online are consuming almost half of your budget, but only yielding 2% of the applications. And we can track that through our proprietary analytics product and give you the visibility. So let's zero in on some of the key problems. Problem number one, you're spending on jobs that are not converting. So in this problem, we've highlighted the business development manager here. We could really look at any posting here. And this is real data from one of our clients. And you can see here that for each job, they've spent nearly $25 or $30 and have nothing to show for it. 0 applies. All right, so this is, take 25 times 7, that's 175. And if you multiply that by 5, by 10, by 20, depending on how many jobs you're advertising, this could be a very significant piece of your budget. So this is one of the key problems that leads to that wasted budget. Problem number 2, over delivery. Here we've highlighted a warehouse associate in New York. Our client told us they knew that if they had 10 good applicants in this application goal section right here, if they had 10 good applicants, they were confident they could make the placement. Unfortunately, they paid for 65 applicants to the tune of $700. Could they have, had they had the visibility and the control of a system like Recruitix, a platform like Recruitix, they would have been able to stop this from happening. All right, another problem that we see is underutilization. Now this is specifically for job slots, which we know many of you are using, and job posts as well. So this problem is you paid for 250 slots, but you're only actually utilizing 200 of them. So those other 50 slots are wasted. You don't have any jobs filling those slots. Another key problem is you leave a job in a slot for too long. There are diminishing returns over time with jobs online. We know that. Our data can show you that. And the longer you leave that job out there, the less attention it gets. So through our analytics and through our automation platform, we can help pinpoint exactly how long a job should be in a slot and ensure that you don't have empty slots. All right, so here are the key problems, just to recap. Visibility. Which jobs am I actually spending on? How are my most important jobs performing? Which sources are actually leading to placements, right? The metric that matters. And what's my cost per placement at each source? All right, so that's visibility. Control. How can I stop spending on jobs that have enough applicants? That's the over-delivery problem, right? And how can I focus spend on critical and hard-to-fill roles? And lastly, expertise. Where should I spend my money? Which sources should I use? And how much should I pay for this type of role? All right, so key questions that we're going to help you answer. So a little bit about our solutions, just briefly. Recruitix Analytics. This is our analytics platform that helps you address that visibility piece. Once you have the visibility on what's happening under the hood with your recruitment marketing strategy, then we allow you to take action through our automation platform. Action, which I'll show you in a minute, is, again, our automation platform, and it allows you to set business logic that governs which jobs go where and at what sponsorship level to make sure you're hitting your goals and not overspending and not left with jobs that are not getting enough applicants to make the placements you need to drive revenue, to drive GM. And our agency services, that's our team of experts who help you craft a strategy that's going to win in the marketplace and utilize our analytics and action platforms to help you achieve those goals. All right, so let's kick it over to the demo. All right, here, so I'm looking at our analytics platform for our demo client here. This is real client data. And right here, we're looking at the number of applies by month by source. So each line represents a source. So we can see that, okay, DICE in April gave 3,400 applicants. And I'm just going to scroll down through some of these. We can see the distribution of performance by source. So the distribution of spend. We can see the distribution of job views. So here, far and away, Indeed leading the pack in the number of eyeballs. But look at this, DICE leading the pack in terms of applications. So this is great information. Right? We've got a couple of different ways to visualize this data as well right here. Some other reports that we have. Here's a trending report. It's filterable. I'm going to apply a saved filter that I set up earlier today. So let's say I want to see what the trend is of my Java developer jobs located in Georgia on Indeed. So pretty granular. Let's apply those filters now and see what happens. There we go. All right, so I just drilled down to see the analytics on only my Java developer jobs on Indeed in Georgia. And we can see the performance by month in each bucket here, conversion rates from click to apply, number of applies, CPC and CPA, right? And then I'm going to pop over here to this report. So say, we were looking at the trend here. Say I want to drill down and understand exactly which jobs those were. No problem. We've got that here in our job detail report. We'll just apply that same saved filter and hit go. And there we are. Here are the Java developer jobs in Georgia and how much they spent on Indeed and what you got in return. All right, very cool stuff. Just very briefly, here's a report that shows the performance. Here it shows utilization of job slots. Again, this is a real client. We've got some other reports. Here's one for clients who are on Bullhorn or iSIMS. We can get into your ATS. We can connect via the API and pull out the placement data to give you true source to hire, source to placement, full funnel analytics to give you the cost per placement. This particular client, on average, takes him about 94 applicants to make a placement and about almost $250 per placement. And lastly, depending on what data is available in your ATS, I just wanted to quickly show this recruiter performance report. So here we can see that Beth spent the most money over the last 30 days on the jobs that she advertised and had a pretty good paid cost per applicant at $4.19 versus Matt, who had a $20.39 cost per applicant. Although Bonnie here was the most effective, on average, she gets 6 applicants per job that she posts versus some of the others you can see down here. All right, that's analytics, that's visibility, right? It's addressing the visibility. And this is our automation and optimization platform that allows you to group jobs by roles. Very briefly, I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so I'm going to go here, I'm going to create a new job group. And the way to think about this is, if you guys are familiar with Google Analytics, or sorry, Google AdWords, AdWords has campaigns, ad groups, and then keywords or ads. Similar structure to Recruitix Action. It is campaigns, job groups, and jobs. So let's say here we want to set a stop spending rule once applications get to 10 or more. So as long as the number of applications is less than 10, we have 142 jobs that match. Here they are. And I'm going to save this as less than 10. All right. There we go. So now I have this job group. I can go select which sources I want to send it to and at what sponsorship level. And anytime a job accumulates 10 or more applications, it no longer meets this criteria. It's kicked out of the sponsorship bucket. You don't continue to pay for applicants that you don't need. All right, so that's the demo. If you want to know more, you can head on over to go.recruitix.com/TechServe-demo-day. And I would love to get to know you guys and share more. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, guys. Hey, thank you. So guys, we wanted to leave some time right now for Q&A. And so you could type your questions into the question box, and I'll ask them to Mark. I see some coming in. So the first question is, just to give you guys a format, we're going to do this Q&A for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to put up a poll on the screen that you guys can answer 3 questions about the company. And then we'll move on to the next company, and we'll do the same exact thing. So the first question, Mark, is which ATS system does Recruitix work with?
Great question. For the cost per placement, that full funnel visibility that I showed you, we call that end-to-end analytics. And for that, we work via API connection with Bullhorn and iCIMS. We're adding others to the mix as well. But in lieu of that API connection, we actually have a way for you to essentially upload a CSV report. So if your ATS can produce a CSV or an Excel file of the placements that you had over a time period, you can simply import that into our Recruitix dashboard, and it will marry all the data up for you.
Great. Another question. Do you have a portal where companies can post directly out of the ATS?
Great question. So the way our system works is we actually pull all of your jobs from your ATS or your career site. That's one of the ways we structure our analytics data. So we marry all those analytics events or job seeker activity to the actual job record that we're pulling from your ATS or career site. And then we are able to distribute it from there to the various sources that you're using.
Great. Another question. How do you measure the effectiveness of the jobs postings other than just applies?
Great question. Well, you can look at a number of dimensions, and depending on whether you have our Analytics Pro, which will show you, spend, views to the job and applications to the job, or whether you have our end-to-end analytics offering that shows you kind of the full funnel, that really determines how far down the funnel you can see. But you can also look at things like conversion rate on the job. You can look at the distribution of activity over time. You can look at which sources are performing, which categories, maybe certain geographies perform better for certain types of roles than others. Example would be developer roles in Austin and the tech hubs of the U.S. versus outside of those areas.
Great. Next question is one of the challenges we have is the quality of our job applicants. Many times we may have 10 people apply, but they are quite underqualified or don't meet the sponsorship requirements. Does your solution offer any ability to track the quality of applicants in addition to volume?
Great question. We do not measure quality ourselves. We do not analyze the applicants in our data. We do, if you are, once a candidate gets into your ATS or your CRM, if you classify that candidate as a qualified or unqualified candidate, and you're using our end-to-end analytics, we'll see that, and we can make adjustments to your media mix in your strategy based on that. And then we can also help you, based on that quality score, adjust how many applicants you should pay for and at what price you should be paying for them. An example is if you get 10 applicants and you realize that most of them are junk and you actually need 20 applicants, well, then we can help you hit that target and to make the most efficient use of funds to buy those 20 applicants.
One of the members asked, would you ever consider adding matching technology to the solution?
Yeah, I think we would consider that, but there are other great companies out there that are tackling that problem, and we were probably more likely to partner with them than to build it ourselves, at least to start with. But we're very much focused right now on the analytics and optimization and the full funnel visibility that we're providing.
So last question. I noticed that Career Builder wasn't listed as a top source. Is this a company that you track?
It is, yes. Career Builder is, it was on actually one of the, Career Builder is right here. Here they are. So we're tracking for this particular job, or for this particular client, we're tracking their posts on Career Builder, how they're utilizing them and what ROI they're getting. So here's a $2.52 cost per applicant from Career Builder.
Do we have any more questions? All right, guys, we're going to put up a poll so you guys can answer a few questions that we have for you about the company, and then we'll move on to the next company, Talennium, and Tom Becker, their CEO.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, guys, I think we're ready to introduce Tom Becker from Talennium. Jenny, are we ready for Talennium?
I just need sharing rights. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to some of you, depending on where you are. Really excited to be with you today. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Let me know if you can't. So by the way of quick introduction, my name is Tom Becker. I'm actually the founder of a company called Talennium that stands for Talent Data for the Next Millennium. But by way of just telling you a little bit about me and my background, I've been purely in the staffing and recruiting space for about 18 years. And actually started as a recruiter, moved into recruiting leadership with companies such as Keen, which is now NTT Data, and always really believed recruiting was an art. When I was sort of in the individual role, as well as we created a few centralized recruiting teams to deal with early MSPs. But what I started to learn is that data is really important. You know, managing through data, verifying performance, things like that. And then I went to a company called Bank of America, where they were very data-driven, and I was actually able to get my green belt, really have a strong understanding of data, performance management, change management, and was actually able to go to, which I'm sure you've all heard of, a company called ComSys, where I got to bring in all the things that I learned at Bank of America in my past experience in recruiting, and I got to bring them back into staffing. And for me, that was when I first got the bug in my head that I really wanted to start this company, because I was able to put a lot of things that I'm going to show you into practice at ComSys, and then of course it became Experis, and it made an enormous difference. You know, we really knew what to measure. We knew how to build great dashboards. It's always how I ran my recruiting organizations that I ran, as well as overall delivery. And ultimately, my final role before I left in 2014 was leading about 2,200 recruiters. So it was a really large organization that spanned across all types of staffing. And I started Talennium in January 2015, and really what we're focused on is very simple. I mean, our business problem that we're after is how do we help companies understand what drives performance? And we know that the inability to drive performance is due to a lack of affordable adherence to processes and data quality, and we see this everywhere. We call it data hygiene, where staffing companies have good data, sort of data in, but really have a little bit of a struggle around what really do we measure, how do we dashboard it, how do we visualize it, and that was the impetus of the company. And essentially what we do is I'll show you the product, I'll show you some of the services, is really we help companies improve performance. You know, we try to get recruiters to be, or we help companies improve about 25%. You know, typically if you're doing 2 placements a month, we want to get you to 3, especially in, you know, depends on the type of recruiting that you're in. But we really want to focus on recruiter productivity, and improving gross profit per recruiter, and then of course speed to submit, because a lot of the work that we do by in bringing data to the table enables you to move from being reactive to proactive. So that's really what we're after. So if you look at, well, what is Talennium? It's a technology and data analytics company, and it's really focused on accelerating sales, recruiting, and operational performance. And we have 2 things that we bring to the table. One is a suite of products that are data visualizations, data modeling, customer forecasting, which I'll show you. But really the services piece is what drives a lot of this, because when we went to get a lot of feedback from potential clients before we started Talennium, we realized that there are great products out there. There are great BI tools out there that can visualize data, but a lot of times we would hear, particularly staffing companies would say, but I don't know how good my data is. You know, we can visualize it, but I'm not even sure what to measure. Help us do that. And that's where we've created this whole suite of services that helps do everything from understand what your current state performance is, all the way through to we believe we have a really disruptive service that's BI as a service, where it's essentially a subscription model where we become an extension of your team, and we provide the product and a whole suite of services where we essentially become your analytics team. We become your analytics department. And from that, we can bring quite a bit to bear around benchmarking. You know, because we do so much work with different types of staffing companies, we get to really see what's out there, what's possible, and that's how we believe one of our key differentiators is that combination of products and services. So on the product side, the name of the product is called Celeritas, which is the C and equals MC squared, which stands for acceleration. And on that product, really what it is, and I'm going to jump into the product before just showing you a little bit, it's everything from performer all the way to company, all the way to office level performance. And I'll talk a little bit about where we get our data from, which is essentially multiple. We can get for everything from your call data to your ATS data, which we'll talk about, to your back-end financials. But really, we're incredibly purpose-built for the staffing industry. So when we work with you around, what should you be measuring, we work with you on a series of activity metrics, efficiency metrics that may be submit to fill, hit rate, which we believe is a real powerful metric, and we visualize all this data. And then we can get you that data as well as show ranking of recruiters and really say, how do you rank in any of your metrics to the recruiter level all the way to the office level. So let me jump in and actually show you the product. So this is actually Celeritas that I'm showing you. And what this tool is mobile enabled. So everything you see here, we've built it with a mobile process built on our mobile first philosophy. So it's built on .NET Azure. So really everything you see can be on a tablet. Our hiring managers or recruiting leaders or sales leaders or office VPs, different staffing companies love this because they could access performance data from multiple systems and really see how they're trending and performing. So for example, if you want to get a view, if you're the leader of the company, on how are interviews and starts, submits projecting, or how are they trending, you could see that for any data point, either weekly, monthly. You could see that, for example, your average submits for that time period. You could switch to monthly as well. But you can see it's incredibly responsive, incredibly fast, and really goes into multiple systems. And we essentially transform the data to give you one view that can go everywhere from an individual performer to an office, to a client, to a region, to a source of hire, for example. But we can give you all that data very quickly and with easy view. The other thing that we do, we give you a couple of views to help you run and sort of manage the business. One of them is, for example, if you want to take a team, let's say the Charlotte team, and you want to say, well, how are they doing on interviews? A lot of times recruiting managers really like this, or sales managers, because all this data is applicable for sales and recruiting. And you could say, well, who's above and below the average? Very quickly, in this particular instance, that was on interviews. If you wanted to do one on starts, you get a very easy view. Each one of these represents who the sales or recruiter is, who's above and below the average. And really what we're trying to do is work with you around distributions. How do your teams perform, and who is high end, who's lower end, and you get very easy visualizations on that. The other thing that we could do is go all the way down to a recruiter and actually show how they compare in peer groups. So for example, here you have a recruiter, and here is her data, which you could see. We're looking at interviews. And you can see that this person, week over week, since March all the way to June 23rd, performs at a certain level week over week, but here's how they perform against the company level. And you can see very easy visualizations. You can also see how they perform against the peer group, but you see they do perform better, or you could take a look at all. You can see how they perform against all. Another feature that for us is a really powerful feature is then also around everything from financial data, which can come out of the front office. Again, we can go into your back office as well. And we give you very quick snapshots that tell you how are you performing against any metric. And because we're focused on staffing, we understand the core drivers of staffing: spread, lockup spread, spread margin, revenue, headcount, for example. And you could take any one of these metrics and actually see how they're performing, and we could even make some projections into the future. But being able to access this type of data from any mobile device tends to be a really powerful way to visualize the data. Another thing that we see here that becomes really powerful is management of ends, because we could actually look out into the future and actually see in the system, for example, if you were to look at the end of the year, in this case, let's look all the way at the end of December, you could see actually what are your ends going to do over time. So basically, given the current end dates, which we know aren't necessarily accurate, we know that recruiters and sales need to manage them, but it's a great indicator to show lots of ends at the end of the year, which is common. But are there other spikes in ends that are going to occur? You can actually see and predict. And also you can create goals. You can say month to date, quarter to date, year to date, how am I doing against things like spread, things like gross margin, and giving access to this data and then bringing it all the way down to that individual is really how we see companies improve their performance, because now you're giving the right level of access to the right people so they can see how they perform. Their managers can use them as conversations that they're having on a regular basis. The other piece of that, and also just to reiterate again, very mobile. We built it entirely from a mobile-first design, and really we can take from multiple data points either through direct access to SQL, or we could also go and directly through APIs and really bring all that into one view. But all that is the product side, which is really important, but I just want to touch upon really quickly the other side of this, which is services. And it complements incredibly well, because anytime we onboard a customer, we give you a lot of value-added services, like, for example, your yield. How many positions do you require to make a start? We can baseline all of your metrics, and we can actually help you create goals. What should be the right level of goal per performer? What's the right, baseline? What's the target that we should go after? And then we can even do a lot of performance clustering, which we have done and we do with all of our customer base. So we can tell you within tenure groups, how is performance? Within clients, how is performance? And the value here is, if you're understanding, for example, either starts per client or submit to fill per client, we can help you understand which of the clients should you either move away from, which of the submits should you redirect so you can get a better return. This is the type of data and insights that we're giving you. Two more things on services that becomes really powerful. One is we can model. So, for example, if you wanted to say, I want to get 10 more placements a month as a team, we can model exactly how many submits that means per recruiter. So if every recruiter were to do 2 more submits a week, what does that really yield? And when we model that out and put it all into the database, it becomes really powerful. And one of the last things that we're doing here is around anticipation. We're creating one of the first forecasting tools that can actually forecast demand. So imagine if you can actually know with a pretty high level of accuracy. What I'm showing here is just one of the approaches that we take to forecast your opening volume. And we can tell you, for example, by market, 6 months out, what are your Java positions going to do? How many more or less of your .NET positions or your project managers or whatever? We can give you those types of insights so you can build talent communities ahead of time, which I know when I was in a recruiting leader role or a leader within different staffing companies I was with, having this level of data and understanding of really what's happening and then measuring it on a regular basis, I believe is really where a lot of that strength comes in actually moving performance. So just to give you some idea, very purposeful for recruiting. We can leverage whatever recruiting stack that you have, and of course we bring in quite a bit of industry best practices and benchmarks that really go across multiple either light industrial or IT or et cetera. I'm going to take a pause there. I think that was it for the time allocated, and I guess we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Tom. So as you guys can see, we're just giving you high-level overviews of what these technologies are doing from a product-focused pitch. We definitely want to hear from you guys, the questions you guys have, and we obviously go way deeper with this with other stuff that we do. So the first question, Tom, is what about the ATS? Which do you integrate with?
So we work with, because we could do it as long as it's a combination thereof, and we could work with all. We've done a lot of work with Bullhorn, a lot of work with eRecruit. We've done work with Taleo. Because we can take data out and put it in structure the data, we truly can work with any of the ATSs. And our typical on time is 6 to 8 weeks in terms of going from where they are, structuring the data, to getting the data to be visualized and in our tool.
Great. Next question is, this technology seemed to be very focused on contingent staffing. Can this be catered towards RPO? If so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I showed was when we implement, we can actually take whatever metrics are important to you, and we would customize it for your recruiting process. So, for example, for RPO, which I'm very familiar with, we would say openings, we would say interviews, quality. So at implementation, we would take whatever is important to you in terms of your metrics, and we would load all that into the tool, and you would get the same visualization. But very, very familiar with RPO models, and I think that onboarding becomes really important. And where the services comes into play, sometimes companies aren't 100% sure what to measure. And we do quite a bit of modeling that shows you, this metric is actually more important than the other metric.
Got it. How much time is required by the users to produce quality data and by management to actively use and understand the product on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
That is such the key question. I mean, to answer, it really depends where you are in your continuum. So when we first take your data, we give you an idea how strong process is and how strong your data is. And what we typically see is that it takes several months to get you from where you are to where you want to be from a process adherence. So, the real answer is 2 to 3 months, because what you want to do is first show the data to sales and recruiters, and they're going to react the same way they always do. They're going to say the data is wrong, the data is incomplete, and what we do is we work with you from a change management perspective to get it in there, and then you layer in goals. So first you represent it, you render the data, and then you get the goals, but everything you see comes entirely out of the system, and we work with you to go from where you are to everything comes out of the system, and everything is being measured there.
Someone said we are on a Salesforce platform that is highly customizable to provide metrics and track performance. What makes this product different?
Again, it's that understanding of recruiting. I would say if it's highly customized, I think that's great. For us, our energy is very focused on making it incredibly simple and straightforward on the metrics that are most meaningful. So the product itself is mobile first. You can access the data anywhere. It's incredibly responsive. On Salesforce, you may or may not have. That may be just one access. What makes our product very unique is we could take from your phone system. We could take data from your financial systems. So basically, we can pull from multiple disparate systems into one system that can give you one view of a person, a company, a region, a department, an office, or whatever. So those are two real key differences.
Does this work with both split desk and full desk agencies?
Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of the...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, if you could elaborate, the other question is, who do you see as your competitors?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So on the other question is, yes, with split desk, I mean, it would be performer based. We wouldn't split out sales and recruiting, when we go through the implementation. And as for competitors, it's really interesting. I mean, we see on the product side, Insight Squared, Cube 19, there's a whole set of, Click, for example, Domo is another one, but they're very exclusively product focused and not entirely built, with the exception of Cube 19, for recruiting. So we see products out there, but where we differentiate is that we bring in the services. So not only do we bring that data to you, but we can help you understand what's important. How do you make the recruiters actually input the data? How do you go from I want to go to 1 start a month per recruiter to 2 or 3? We really help you with all that change management, which is really how we fundamentally differentiate with some of our other competitors.
Great. Do we have any other questions? All right, we're going to go to the poll. Thank you, guys. We'll be right back in 2 minutes with the next company. But we really appreciate your feedback here. So, we really would like you guys to participate in the poll. Thank you. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate your participation. So next up, we have Nick from Hone It. Nick, take over.
Hey everybody, hope you can hear me okay. Thanks to TechServe Alliance and Talent Tech Labs for organizing this. Really appreciate the opportunity to share what we're building. So my name is Nick Livingston, co-founder and CEO of Hone It Interview Technology. We've built a data-driven phone interview platform to really help every recruiter in your organization effectively screen, share, and share talent so that you can hire and place the best talent before your competition does. So we're really focused on effective candidate phone screens and time to submit, really getting that candidate on site quicker so that you get the placement. Why are we doing this and why we're excited? So recruiters spend half of our day on the telephone, talking to candidates. We have these great conversations full of rich insights, full of great candidate answers, and we as recruiters are scribbling notes throughout the call trying to capture all of this information. But most of this rich candidate data and the insights from these phone conversations are lost and never makes it to our ATS. And then furthermore, those scribbled notes and the info we provide to our clients, isn't really evidence. It's subjective opinions, and that really slows down the interview process for everyone involved. So basically, in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're turning our daily phone conversations with candidates into rich candidate data, for better collaboration, faster submittals, and a better interview experience overall. So let me minimize this here. So again, we've built this around our natural phone conversations that are already taking place with candidates. So the system works with your telephone, your mobile phone, or you can actually just speak through VoIP. And we're capturing the rich audio highlights and answers that a candidate would provide during our calls, so that we can capture a completely new candidate data layer for our ATS and CRM, and use this to improve the internal workflow within, recruiters, staffing managers, account managers, and sales owners of the accounts, but then also in-house with corporate teams, remove redundancies there. Really what we're building here is a platform that empowers every recruiter to maximize their time with that candidate. To ask the right questions for any given skill set, and really conduct a more thorough screen that counts. So we don't have so many redundant phone interviews, down the funnel. And the goal is to really get candidates on site faster. What are we talking about? We're talking about phone interview data and insights. So, the good things that a candidate might tell us during our conversation. We ask them an in-depth question about their ideal QA team, how they write their test scripts, what tools they use for automated testing, if we're talking to QA people. Their responses to our questions can now be captured and stored in our ATS or CRM. Similarly, a questionable answer that we might not know what's a good versus great answer for a particular question can now be shared with our team, with our boss, with an expert who can quickly listen to a few highlights and say that candidate knows what they're talking about without so many redundant conversations in the mix. But the real magic here is when you take a couple of those audio highlights that have been captured during your call and include a couple of those when you introduce candidates to your clients. So now, in addition to sharing the resume, sharing a little write-up, sharing some of the skills that were tagged during the call, you can include a couple of actual audio excerpts from your conversation. And these are, this is the candidate answering the in-depth questions, that the hiring manager may typically ask themselves. But now the recruiter can facilitate these screens. So removing misinterpretation, removing miscommunication, creating a better candidate experience, and really enabling recruiters to show our work. I think that's also one of the big challenges of our profession, is that we do a lot behind the scenes that really isn't noticed or recognized by other members of our team or especially with clients. So just a little bit about us. I'm Nick. I started my career in the recruiting business in New York on the staffing side of things. I worked at a couple of staffing agencies before moving in-house and leading teams at MTV Networks and Viacom, and then moving out to the Bay Area where I was able to scale a startup through IPO, and that was a whole other recruiting experience, but pretty exciting. I've also worked at a couple HR technology companies. James and Kim, my co-founders, are both senior engineers who, were frustrated with today's interview process, having to repeat themselves, and all the redundancy that goes along with technical hiring as hiring managers themselves, or as candidates, through the technical interview process. And so why is today's interview process frustrating to everyone? Well, you look at this slide, it's a bit of an eyesore, but what we have is a linear series of redundant conversations of which no real data or insights are being shared. So I'll never forget when I was an agency getting started, junior recruiter in interviewing technical people, I'd get off a 30-minute screen, I'd hang up, I'd say, this person's great. I'd share my notes and their resume with my boss, Jay, who would say, yeah, Nick, that doesn't seem right, not what the client's looking for. I'm like, Jay, you should have heard this. It was incredible. He knows exactly what he's talking about. And so Jay would have to spend another 20 minutes talking to the candidate, right? And then Jay would agree, oh, you're right, he was great. We would then present our resume and notes to the salesperson at the agency on the account whose relationship managed the relationship. They would look at the resume, look at us, say, yeah, not quite what my client's looking for. We're like, we're serious. Do you want to talk to the candidate? They're like, yeah, I'll talk to them. There we go. 3 phone conversations with the same candidate before we even present them. And what's the first thing an internal recruiter does? Their reputation's on the line with anybody they let through to their hiring manager. So there's another 20, 30-minute phone screen with the internal recruiter, and so on. And it's all because we're sharing opinions instead of sharing evidence. And there's a lot of checks and balances that has become this interview process, and this is why ATSs are so important nowadays, because there's so many redundant steps just trying to keep track of where a candidate's at. But by sharing evidence and data, we can really instill trust and add credibility between each step of this process. So, now a single recruiter can conduct a single phone screen, share a few highlights with their immediate boss, the salesperson on the account, who can all align, feel good about the candidate, introduce this candidate to their client. The internal recruiter can feel good about it, check the communication skills box, check the culture fit box, and even the technical teams can listen to a few highlights and say, wow, that engineer knows what they're talking about, or that finance person really knows cost accounting. So that we go from phone screen to on-site interview for the first time ever. Cutting weeks of the process and really instilling interview collaboration throughout. So you're probably familiar with some of the competitors out there, what we'd call competitors. I think our biggest competitor is the telephone itself. Skype and Hangouts are great. I use those a lot at MTV and TubeMogul. But video just simply isn't as convenient. I think it also introduces bias and potential discrimination. Whereas phone is quick, it's easy, and candidates can step out and do a quick call any time of the day. Those are two-way analog communication tools, right? On the other hand, there's been a lot of new technology around one-way or data collection tools, right? Like coding quizzes or video tests, where you get 100 people to apply, you send 90 emails, and we're asking candidates to essentially interview themselves, right? I think in a hyper-competitive, talent-driven market, New York, Bay Area, etc., like I wouldn't dream of asking candidates who express interest in our company to record themselves, right? They want to talk to candidates. They want to talk to someone at the company. They have questions, and they're interviewing us, right? So whatever we can do to make our conversations with the candidate more effective, this is a real-time data. This is natural phone conversations. And what we're doing, it's 3 simple steps with one very small behavior change. Each recruiter using the system now has a unique URL. You can copy and paste this email URL into your existing ATS or CRM email templates, and that kicks off the scheduling workflow. Candidates pick a time. It's this branded experience throughout. Recruiter clicks one button to schedule the conversation. Calendar invites go out. And then when we jump on the call, it's just like a natural phone conversation to the candidate, except once we hang up the phone, all of the rich data and insights from our call can be exported to our ATS or CRM with a click of a button. So small change of behavior, but a tremendous impact of interview collaboration and accelerating the process for our candidates. Wanted to just talk about a couple quick case studies before we do a live demo. Yonder Music is a music startup in New York. They were looking to hire a lead back-end engineer, a Python expert. Everybody knows it's a very tough skill set. They had a non-technical recruiter who could now incorporate 4 or 5 Python questions into their initial phone screen. So not very different than what they'd already be assessing in terms of culture fit, enthusiasm, but now they can actually ask 4 or 5 in-depth Python questions. After the call, the CTO can listen to a few minutes of those answers and understand, wow, this person knows Python. Those are great answers. They went from phone screen to on-site interviews, cutting 2 weeks from the process, getting people on-site faster. And so what are they sharing? So, the recruiter could ask, so what's changed in Django 1.2 to 1.9? Most recruiters would have no idea what a good versus great answer to that question would be, but now any recruiter can still ask that question, and the person who knows a good versus great answer can quickly listen and decide good versus great. This can happen within your staffing agency with more senior recruiters and more junior recruiters, or even with experts. Another client, Magoosh, ed tech here in the Bay Area, they're finding this is really great for recruiter training and fast feedback. So a junior recruiter can conduct a phone screen. Their boss, the recruiting manager, can quickly listen to a few highlights and give some great feedback as to whether or not that is a good versus great candidate, and it may be ways to improve really get that junior recruiter ramped quicker. And then the CEO can even allocate a few minutes to listen to what transpired and really set up an effective on-site interview by focusing on critical areas, without having to do another phone interview with the candidate themselves. AdTalent's a client that might be most relevant to this audience. They're a staffing firm where, now that the agency recruiter can conduct a single phone screen, ask in-depth subject matter or industry questions, and share these excerpts, these highlights with multiple clients, multiple internal recruiters that would review, who can then forward this evidence to multiple hiring managers within the company. So we're going from phone screen at the agency to multiple on-site interviews at multiple clients. So they're seeing a huge acceleration in terms of removing steps and getting their candidates placed. So now let's connect to a live demo. Let me just exit out of here. So you can imagine this is what a candidate could receive: an email template coming from your recruiter, a LinkedIn invite, etc., with a unique URL. Candidates would pick a few times, submit that request to a recruiter who can select a time, and calendar invites essentially go out to both parties. Now this interview is essentially living and breathing on your calendar. You can connect to the interview through your calendar, or you can connect through our dashboard that keeps track of all the interviews that are upcoming and past. So let's click in. Okay, so hopefully you all can see this. What we have here is our interview dashboard. This is synchronized with our phone conversation. First thing a recruiter can do is come in and pick a script. So let's say we're going to be interviewing James as a QA automation engineer. So here we've got the associated skill tags to look out for and tag during the conversation, and also the 3 to 4 to 5 questions that we want to include during our live phone screen with the candidate. So once we're happy with that, we simply connect. I'm not going to use my microphone on my computer because I'm using that for the webinar, but you can connect through just your computer, makes it very easy, or you can connect over the phone. So in this situation, I could call a phone number from my landline, from my mobile phone, or I could simply have the system call me. I'm just going to type in my phone number. This could be my landline. This could be my cell phone. So hopefully you can hear this. My cell phone's ringing right now. I'm going to answer.
Hello, welcome to Talennium.
So I press any number to connect to the interview.
You are now being connected to your interview. You may hear home music while all parties are connecting. This call will be recorded.
And we also give a quick verbal reminder to the candidate and to the recruiter that the call will be recorded. You know, that's required in 13 states, but we've already baked that in to be just a default setting. And of the thousands of interviews that have already taken place through the system, I think we've only had one occurrence where a candidate you know, opted out of this. Okay, sorry for the delay. James is connecting right now. So just a little bit of lightweight hold music. Well, the suspense. Sorry, everybody. It's taking just a little bit longer than I hoped. James? Hey, Nick Livingston here. How are you? Excellent. So James would have just dialed in on a phone number and a PIN. To him, it's just a regular phone interview. And to the recruiter on the other end, we're interacting with this screen while we talk over the phone. So that once we do a little bit of small talk, I thank James for responding to my LinkedIn invite. I thank him for applying. I thank him for, you know, expressing interest. We can kind of dive into the interview, and you know, you do your typical, why are you looking, what's your work authorization, you know, tell him about the company. But then now we can dive into a few in-depth questions. So James, you know, do you prefer white box or black box testing in your QA development setup? Awesome. And so once he finishes talking, I just clip that clip that highlight. That creates a unique audio file for his answer to that specific question. And now I could dive in and say, you know, so you know, how do you think an should fit with an engineering organization? Like, what's the best right mix? How do you embed the QA folks?
You know, I think a good developer has QA their own work as they go, but I think having a QA team is sort of a luxury. It technically comes in kind of pre-release, you know, maybe in the staging environment, I would say, but you know, it's hard to say there.
Okay.
Having the luxury of a QA team, really.
Okay, good answer. Well, so that's what we wanted to show you, really. So it's a very lightweight interaction. You know, happens during your live conversations. You can take typical notes. You can tag moments in time that fit keywords, but then you can also record and take notes on particular answers, so that, you know, after the fact, you know, you've got all this rich data to play with. And James, maybe that'll conclude our demo. Thanks, man. Talk to you later. All right.
All right, thank you.
Bye. So that now, after the call, we've got all of this rich data. We've got the entire conversation we can quickly listen to later. You know, the next recruiter that comes in and finds this candidate, the database can listen for themselves. You know, you can listen to a couple of actual excerpts from that call. You know, and these are, again, the questions that would typically from your clients, as well as moments in time we can skip to. And with the click of a button, this data can be exported to your candidate record in your CRM or ATS. So that's really what we wanted to show you there. And this works for corporate recruiting. This works for large staffing agencies. We're even getting interest from VC talent teams who do a lot of phone interviews and share talent with their respective portfolio companies. So I guess that's all I have for us. I guess in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're taking all that great work that recruiters are already doing, capturing the rich insights from these calls so that we can use this data to make better decisions, save our clients time, and make more placements. Feel free to book me if you'd like to do a live demo and chat through the system later.
Thanks, Nick. So I just wanted to point out we have a number of questions here. One member asked a question about cost. As Nick said, we'll provide the ability for you guys to reach out to each company individually, and you can ask them that privately, since this is really only a product pitch, not a sales pitch. The next question is, how does Honeit see their system integrating with the ATS?
That's a great question. I mean, that's usually the first question that people ask. And as a recruiting director and a HR tech fan for a decade, I'm very mindful at how important it is to make it frictionless and easy on the user. And that's really why we've designed this so that really all you need to do to start using this tomorrow is copy and paste a unique URL into your existing email templates through whatever ATS or CRM you're already using. We know whether you love or hate your ATS, we want to fill the gap that is this offline phone conversation, and turn it into an online experience so that this data can live in your ATS. And to do that, you literally just copy and paste this into, your in-mails that you send candidates, your email templates in your CRM, or however you reach out to candidates. We do have an integration with iSIMs, and we are excited about integrating with more ATS and CRMs, but we also just wanted to make this very easy to leverage real-time interview technology without a robust integration.
Got it. Someone asked if if the system can be implemented on demand, because the first interview happens at the moment sometimes.
Yeah, so that's good feedback. That's something we're actually working on. We find that a lot of recruiters like to schedule conversations in advance to be mindful of candidates' time, especially if they apply, etc. But we have gotten feedback that recruiters would like kind of a call now functionality, and so we are working on that. Right now, it's more find a mutual time and call in at the same time. But I do like that, and we're working on that right now.
All right. A number of people have asked if you could just record the entire interview and then add like the tags after.
Exactly. So right here, after you end the call, basically this was our live call that we just concluded. You'll see I have the entire conversation up here, of which I can review, in addition to the 2 questions that we got to during our call. But if at one point I want to highlight this part and double-click it, you can see it added the beginning and end, and then I can just add a question after the fact, YQA.
Got it.
So we want this to be kind of quick and easy and all done when you end the call, so you can use this data. And after 1 or 2 interviews, you don't have to really go back and edit, but you do have the ability to edit any of these beginning and end stamps, or edit the question, or add additional questions after the fact.
Can you combine recorded questions into a single voice file for the client?
So that's kind of what we're thinking here. We've explored where, on the ride home, the hiring manager, this is all very mobile friendly. They can be on their phone, listen to a few highlights for each of the candidates you send them, right? And then after they hear, they can click a click button to say, yeah, let's get this candidate on site. They're awesome. I wouldn't have expected it from their resume, but you know it when you hear it. But right now, each of these are single audio clips, because we want to give recruiters control over sharing only what we want to share, right? We don't want to share everything. But I do foresee an autoplay feature where we could essentially autoplay these in a row, if that makes sense.
Got it. Next question is, the whole time seems very long. What's the typical amount of time to make a connection?
I'm sorry, say again?
The whole time seemed long. Somebody asked what the typical time it takes to make a connection?
Yeah, that was my bad. I was supposed to text James to be on call when I was starting my presentation, and I typed the text and didn't send it, but he didn't know when to join. That was the problem there. So I texted him, unfortunately, when we needed to connect rather than 10 minutes ahead of time. So, but really just calling in and just like you're joining a web conference like a GoToMeeting or something.
We lost 6 more attendees.
Got it. Let me see, we got a few more. Can the URL as well, hold on, let me see what we got here. Can the URL as well as the views that the candidate may see be branded to the staffing firm?
Oh yeah, everything's branded. So, the initial phone interview invite that goes out is a branded experience with your colors and logo. The thank you for the time email is branded. The invite reminder that goes out is branded. And then when example, this URL is a URL you could just copy and paste and share with a client, through a VMS, through email, through text, is all branded as well.
Oh, great, Nick. Thank you. Let's go ahead to the poll.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Again, we really, really appreciate your feedback. So we really encourage you guys to participate in the poll. And right after the poll, Mark will be joining the call again to wrap up.
All right. Well, I just want to thank Gene, Brian, John, and everyone at Talent Tech Labs for partnering with us on this and kind of showing at least 3 companies in some of their innovative technologies. Really also appreciate everyone who participated and all of your feedback. We are really want to know whether this was helpful and whether we should do more of this. And so at the close, we're going to be pushing out a poll, a survey, and really encourage you to fill that out. Again, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we really feel that we have a role to serve in terms of being a thought leader in this space. Disruptive technologies are coming in the talent acquisition space, and we want to partner with organizations such as Talent Tech Labs, who is really doing a deep dive on what some of these companies are doing. So with that, I want to thank everyone for participating. This is one of our longest and most successful webinars, and greatly appreciate everyone's participation. Thank you all.